Now, as we told you earlier, a 15-month-old baby was killed after being chopped in the head. This came after the grandmother of the child said she suffered 24 years of abuse. She said she did not want to leave the man. We do have joining us now psychiatrist and host of The Present Mind on MCTV, Dr. Shivan Mahabir. Dr. Mahabir, good evening and thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, good evening, Rishi. Thank you for having me this evening.
Dr. Mahabir, the first thing, people generally think about when they hear a story like this is, how does one cope with it?
It's certainly a very tragic situation. It's not one that is easily coped with. There will be, of course, a lot of emotions involved. There will be anger, there will be self-blame, there will be blame against the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator. There will be grieving for the young child that sadly passed away. May she rest in peace. So it's going to be a very difficult time. And I would encourage the family members, anyone close to the family who has been affected, to reach out to get support, whether it's pastoral support, support from loved ones, support from mental health professionals. We are all willing and able to help you in this time of grief.
Yeah. And now all of this would have come following 24 years of abuse for the grandmother, and she stuck through this. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Rishi, people on the outside who have not been in abusive relationships sometimes say like, well, didn't she just leave? Mm-hmm. But for anyone who has been in a relationship like that, they would tell you that it's very, very difficult, that there are a multitude of factors why someone may not leave. For instance, they may actually, be in love with the person, have hopes that the person may change, have hopes that they can change the person. That's one situation. Sometimes it's that they are so enmeshed with the person in terms of finances, being married, having children, that it's very difficult to separate. Sometimes they have no financial resources of their own and they are dependent on the abuser. Sometimes they are depressed or emotional abuse has made them feel as though this is all their fault and there's nothing they can do to change it. So it's useless to leave because wherever they go, no one will want them. So there are many, many factors at play, and it's not an easy decision for someone to leave an abusive relationship, or it's not as easy as we may think. Additionally, what we know is that when a person leaves an abusive relationship, a physically abusive relationship, especially women, that is actually the most risky time for them. Their chances of being killed rise up to 70% more after leaving the relationship than when they were in it, because the jilted lover, so to speak, goes after them. And we've had cases like that here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, and what stood out to me is when we spoke with the grandmother, Shivan, is that she said that he would have proposed to her and she told him no. How much of a contributing factor was that rejection to a man? Not just in this case.
Well, of course, if we feel rejected, it does, make us feel inferior. It does make us feel unworthy, and it can make us feel very angry. And sometimes in an attempt to regain our sense of power, we may lash out to show that we are the ones in charge. So there definitely is a possibility that was a factor in what was going on.
Yeah, and then we see this all led to a 15-month-old child, the life being taken away in such a brutal manner. And so this is going to have a real impact on the family. Well, of course, we wait for the police to investigate and they will give us more information on this matter. What is the takeaway from this for us, though? How do we address this moving forward?
I think that it's a reminder that when we are in these situations, the risk of violence, whereas it is primarily being perpetrated against one person, the victim, other persons around can also be at risk. For instance, someone may have stepped in to try to stop him from harming the grandmother, and they may have gotten chopped. I don't know if the child was the target that he actually intended to injure. The grandmother has injuries. She said that she was bracing. But because the child was in her lap, the child may have inadvertently been injured. So this is a message that we want to get across to persons, that it is not only you at risk, but your children, bystanders, persons who care about you, who may try to intervene, who may become unwitting victims of violence as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, how much of a factor age is in this matter? She is 50. We understand the suspect is about 62. How much of a factor is that in a situation like this? Does it even matter?
It really doesn't matter. Abuse happens across the age spectrum. It happens in very young relationships and in very mature relationships and everywhere in between. So, I wouldn't say that the age made the risk of violence any more or less.
And it's not as easy to walk away as you mentioned. What advice then would you give as we close this segment?
Sure. So, first of all, even without leaving, there are things that you can do to create some safety for yourself. Please reach out and try to access counseling or support, which can be done through your doctor or your local health center. Or there are hotlines like the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the Trinidad and Tobago Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Trinidad and Tobago Victims and Witness Support Unit, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. All of these hotlines are available for you to reach out to get help. And again, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to leave, but they can guide you to resources. And another thing that persons can do is create what we call a safety plan. So a safety plan is a plan that you make in advance so that in times of crisis, you will know what to do. You will know where to go, who to call, how you're getting in contact with them. You might have given someone you trust some money to keep for you, because when you leave in a hurry, you may not have any clothes or money with you, so you'll have some resources to fall back on. You can also set up a safe word so that if you are in danger, you can, and you can't call, you can text the safe word to your friend and they will know to get in contact with the police and send help. So these are all things that we sit down with persons who are in abusive relationships and walk them through that process of making the plan and putting things in place so that if worse comes to worse, they will be able to hopefully escape from serious injury or death.
Dr. Mahabir, thank you very much for joining us this evening, sharing your thoughts on this matter as